Hello there. Welcome in to a Wednesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which deliver you clear, uninterrupted audio of this and any of your favorite shows on both KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Those apps are both free to download. They're both free to use, and they're both sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of this program, and I'd love to get your thoughts. 719-247-1313 is the number if you want to call or text into the show. And if you're watching the show on any number of social media platforms, you can drop a comment while you are there, and it works just as well. Let's start with some hoops today. Actually, it's going to be a lot of hoops today because there's a lot going on in the National Basketball Association. The good news is the Denver Nuggets are getting healthier. Christian Braun returned last night. He looked very much like he looked the last time the Nuggets brought him back from his ankle injury, which is ineffective and just kind of there. And the way he looked last time they brought him off the injured list made them want to put him back on the injured list. So we'll see. One game, so let's see how Christian Braun builds up here over the next few games before the All-Star break. But he's back. If he stays back, then you've gotten Nikola Jokic back and Christian Braun back in the last few days. Now you're waiting on just Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson. So that's the good news. The bad news is that clearly the Denver Nuggets aren't healthy enough to beat the best teams in the NBA. The last two games, they have faced the top team in the West in Oklahoma City. That was Sunday night. They lost 121-111 at home. Last night in Detroit, the number one team in the East, the Denver Nuggets lost 124-121. So they're like in it by the score, but if you watch these games, they're just not. Right now, as currently constructed, they are not on the level of the top team in the West and the top team in the East. In fact, it wasn't that long ago, about a week ago, that the Denver Nuggets played Detroit in Denver. And last night's game and that game looked very similar. Detroit jumped on Denver from the start, got out to a big lead, and the Nuggets were able to rally before ultimately running out of gas. Detroit was up 19 at halftime. So you look and you say, oh, they only lost by 3. There's a little bit more nuance to it. The Denver Nuggets just weren't on the same level as Detroit in either one of these two games, and were not on the level of Oklahoma City just a couple of days ago. Now, part of the problem, in addition to Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson still being out, is the fact that so many players are on minutes restrictions. Nikola Jokic just came back a few games ago. Christian Braun, they're reintegrating into the lineup. And the Denver Nuggets did not play Spencer Jones. And I won't bore you with the NBA legalese, but essentially, if he plays 50 games, which he's saying at 49, if he plays 50 games, the Nuggets have to turn him into a full-blown rostered player, and they don't have him on a two-way contract anymore. So chalk this up to money is the answer. What's the question? They don't want to pay Spencer Jones more money without trying to move some other monies around to compensate for it. So that wasn't health of Spencer Jones. That was willfully sitting him so they didn't have to pay him more money. Now, whether you like it or not, it was something that Spencer Jones knew was going to happen. The Nuggets were not shy about it. They weren't hiding it. So that's why Spencer Jones didn't play, and you got a whole bunch of weird rotations. David Adelman had to play Jonas Valanciunas and Nikola Jokic together, which, as a novelty, I kind of like watching it. But the impact is you don't have a backup center. You don't have a backup big. You played the two of them together. You would have Aaron Gordon as the backup five. Well, Aaron Gordon's out. So playing those two guys together screws up the rotations even more. And they just look like a team that doesn't know quite what to do with the personnel that's surrounding them on a nightly basis. Here's David Adelman, the head coach of the Nuggets, with more on that.
The challenge for us right now is with all the things that are happening, people coming back, the minute restrictions, we have to avoid paying attention to that. We just have to play and just deal with it as we go. And we're going to have some clunky moments. It's the rotation's different. We tried different things tonight. Just trying to fit people into the minutes they can play. And that's how it's going to be. I was really proud of the comeback, but I was not pleased with the early energy in this game.
So there's David Adelman saying we got to play through it. And that's true. Like, the season is going to pause for the All-Star game here eventually, but it's not going to pause right now and wait for the Denver Nuggets to get everybody back and everybody in their right spots. And I think David Adelman overall, you have to say, has done a great job in balancing all of this. But what they have run into the last couple of games are two of the best teams in the NBA. And it's one thing to be able to get by against Brooklyn, against Washington, against the Clippers. It's a completely different story to go up against the top team in the East and the top team in the West and expect all of this to come together in order to get wins. So the Nuggets, with the players out and the other players who are working their way back, they're not a match for the top team in each conference. But there's also a theme here beyond just where OKC and Detroit are in the standings. I'll use Nikola Jokic's word to describe both of these teams, but he used it last night talking about Detroit. They're handsy. In another word, they're physical. The Nuggets have had problems with OKC and Detroit because of their physicality and the physicality that they are allowed to get away with. And remember, this is what cost the Denver Nuggets when they kept running up against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Right? Why were the Timberwolves such a bad matchup? Because of Naz Reid and McDaniels and Gobert, the physicality and the defense. I mean, let's not make it all out to be Detroit and OKC just foul all the time. They are, at their core, very good defensive teams. And then on top of it, they're allowed to be a little bit more physical than maybe you would like them to be. And that was the exact combination that gave the Nuggets all those problems against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So it's two different teams now, but it's the same idea, same premise. It's like when you watch an Avs game and what do they always say is the key? Take away time and space. from the Avalanche. That's your only hope. Take away time and space. Same thing with the Nuggets. This is the basketball version of taking away time and space. The Nuggets just have a problem with it, which is something they have to deal with. Right? With Minnesota, there wasn't as much of the officiating discourse as there is right now, and I'll get to that momentarily. Okay? But reasonable physicality with elite defending has been the downfall of the Denver Nuggets since they won an NBA title. And it's just like the Avs with the time and space thing. You got to figure it out. Not every game is going to be dictated by you in terms of the terms of engagement. But now you have this additional aspect of it with OKC especially, but also if you watched the game last night or the game a week ago, Detroit is a little OKC-like when it comes to what they are allowed to get away with in terms of physicality. And the frustration level from David Adelman is getting higher.
The frustrating thing about these games is Cunningham shoots 11 free throws, Jamal shoots 13, Jokic shoots 3. And it's like a totally different game being played around the rim, near the basket. And I'm trying to figure it out. It's just like two different basketball games going on with the bigs and the smalls. And we just have to find a way to play through that.
And it goes back to what I talked about on Monday with OKC. Okay, and Mark Daigneault, being the elite head coach that he is for Oklahoma City, made the decision last year in the playoffs to put Alex Caruso on Nikola Jokic, which if you just heard that, you'd be like, why is he doing this? How can Alex Caruso hope to be able to defend Nikola Jokic? Forget the skill, the size, the sheer size difference on those two players. Why is that a good move? Because in part, and I like Alex Caruso, that dude battles. So that's part of it. That's half the battle, is that Caruso is a willing participant and willing to get in there and bang bodies with Nikola Jokic and try to knock him off of his spot. But the other half is that Daigneault and the Thunder recognized that the officials are going to allow smaller players to be overly physical with Nikola Jokic to make up the difference physically. And what David Adelman is saying, and I think many Nuggets fans would agree, that's not fair. If you're going to put a smaller player on Nikola Jokic, you should not be allowed for them to compensate. That's a willful decision that they made. If they think they can defend Nikola Jokic with a player that's 5 or 6 inches shorter and giving up 100 pounds, then that's on them. Why are they given help by being allowed by the officials to hack and claw and grab? That shouldn't be allowed. And that's what David Adelman is saying here. It's going beyond what should be allowed, and the fact that not much physicality is being allowed when it's guard v. guard, right? Shea, with the number of fouls that he drew the other night, and he mentioned it. Cade Cunningham went to the free throw line quite a bit. And to be fair, David Adelman points out Jamal Murray shot plenty of free throws. This is a Jokic-specific conversation. And even Nikola Jokic is getting frustrated because last night he was asked what adjustments his team should make.
Just a foul more because, I think the foul is good. It's good tactics and good detail in tactics, so just foul more.
Not that I'm translating, but allow me to emphasize what Nikola Jokic is saying. And Katie Wingy's question in there, too, was trying to almost like as a clarifying question. Oh, you mean be more physical? And Nikola Jokic is like, no, foul more. That is Nikola Jokic being frustrated because he feels like he is being fouled constantly. And it's not that Jokic only is being picked on. Or I'll put it this way. If everybody was allowed to be as physical as everybody else with everybody else on the floor, if the Nuggets could be as physical with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as the Thunder are with Nikola Jokic, and last night, if the Nuggets are allowed to be just as physical with Cade Cunningham or Jalen Duren as Nikola Jokic, then I think this is a non-issue. It's the imbalance. It's the inconsistency that is more adversely impacting the Denver Nuggets because their best player, the guy that they run everything through, is a big man. If Nikola Jokic is not allowed to have some range of motion to be able to operate and do his thing, the Nuggets will suffer. Have you noticed Nikola Jokic's assist totals the last couple of games? He hasn't had triple doubles the last 2 games. The stat category that's lower, assists. And you know the corollary between lower Jokic assists and Nuggets success. The lower his assist numbers, the lower the success rate of the Denver Nuggets. They need Jokic to be able to, and no one's asking, don't put a hand on him. It's give it whatever physicality you're allowing in the backcourt, allow it in the front court, and Nikola Jokic being the best player in the world and being a human computer will figure it out. But he's having trouble gauging what he can do when he's noticing physical play not being allowed everywhere else on the court except when he has the ball in his hands. This is something that has to be rectified because I don't think that the Denver Nuggets are going to be able to beat OKC in a 7-game series if this inconsistency between the way that guards and forwards are and centers are officiated is allowed to continue. If you want to allow physicality on everybody. But if you're not going to let teams get handsy with guards, and if you're not going to allow the Nuggets to get handsy with opposing guards, then don't let them get handsy with Nikola Jokic. You can hear the frustration mounting with this team, and this is the worst back-to-back. It wasn't back-to-back. Tonight's the back-to-back. They play the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. But these last 2 games are the worst possible 2 games to line up right now for this Denver Nuggets team. Because a lot of this stuff that frustrated the Nuggets against OKC frustrated them last night against Detroit. 719-24-7-1313. Get your take on things. Are the Nuggets just not healthy enough to beat the top teams in each conference? Or is there a personnel issue here? To wit, the NBA trade deadline is tomorrow, but a lot of trades going on today. And the big prize of the trade market, Giannis Antetokounmpo, should the Nuggets be involved? That's next here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Guys, avoid the annual Valentine's Day panic. Win a Diamond Heart pendant from Louisa Graff Jewelers with premium lab-grown diamonds. It'll look like you actually planned ahead. Go to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com to enter to win by Sunday. The business in the NBA is picking up about now less than 24 hours away from the NBA trade deadline. The reason is, you remember when it was shortly after the Luka trade that the Lakers tried to get Mark Williams from the Hornets, and it was like right at the deadline, and then they put him through a physical and he failed the physical, allegedly, and then the trade fell apart. What you're seeing today, and we'll get into all the moves, but why you're seeing this flurry of activity is so in case another Mark Williams situation comes up, there is time for a team to pivot and look elsewhere. So it's almost like this has become trade deadline day. But the top prize of the trade market has yet to be moved, as Giannis Antetokounmpo is still a member of the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, don't get me wrong, plenty of teams are making other moves to try and get the assets and the cap space necessary to bring in Giannis, but as of right now, no one has made a trade yet for Giannis. And so every NBA city, every NBA fan base is kind of asking to themselves, would I like my team to get Giannis? And why should this fan base be any different? Matt Moore, who's a terrific writer, Action Network, fan-sided, he's covered the Nuggets for years. Thought-provoking work of prose from him on fan-sided regarding trading for Giannis. And the baseline emotion, I guess, behind all of this, I agree with. Or the baseline premise. It's Giannis. Of course, you're going to pick up the phone. Of course, you're going to workshop trade ideas. It's Giannis. He's one of the 3 best players on planet Earth. You do that. And so I have no problem with it. In fact, let's go through the exercise. But when I go through the exercise of figuring out what it would actually take for the Denver Nuggets to land Giannis, I don't feel like it's worth it for the Denver Nuggets. To say nothing of the fact that the Nuggets don't have anything to offer the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, I may be raining on the parade here. The Nuggets they are willing to part with nothing of value to give the Milwaukee Bucks. They're not giving up Murray or Jokic for Giannis. They don't have first-round picks, and they don't have a lot of blue-chip talent. The one guy that you have who's been kind of a revelation is Peyton Watson. But Peyton Watson right now, at the price point he's at his contract, it's not going to make up any difference. You still have to throw in large contracts to make the money work. But let's play the game here, because what Milwaukee wants, I don't even know that they're going to get. Okay, because they want all these first-round picks and they want blue-chip young talent, and I can't find a team that combines those two things, that is actually interested in him. More on that in a moment. He puts out the idea of Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, and Christian Brown for Giannis. Okay? Setting aside the fact that none of those 3 guys satisfy what Milwaukee is reportedly looking for, But Matt covers himself by saying, hey, you could spin off Aaron Gordon or Cam Johnson for what you're looking for. Right? So you basically be getting one young player in Christian Brown who you may like him, may not, and then two guys that you could dangle in front of contending teams and get that draft capital that you are desiring. So, okay, let's continue on with the premise here. And I'll ask the question, why isn't Oklahoma City involved in landing Giannis? Why isn't San Antonio being talked about? Why aren't they showing interest? Especially OKC. OKC could land Giannis yesterday if they wanted to. No third team, no buying anybody out. They could satisfy every requirement that the Milwaukee Bucks have to bring in Giannis, and they wouldn't even need to discuss trading SGA. They wouldn't even need to. Oklahoma City could put an end to the Giannis saga whenever they want. They have so many draft picks, and they have so much young talent that Milwaukee would accept a trade from them in a heartbeat. Why are they not trying to get Giannis? It's because the reason they won a title and the reason why they believe they can win multiple titles is because of the depth and draft capital that they have. So to offer up both of those things to get Giannis when you just won a title doesn't make any sense to Sam Presti. And it shouldn't make any sense to the Denver Nuggets. The whole point of this offseason was to create depth, and you have done that. Unfortunately, right now, that depth is being tested because of all the injuries. But you have created the depth that this team has desperately needed. And everyone said after the NBA Finals last year, between Indiana and OKC, you got to be deeper. It's not about having a big three anymore. You get your duo, and you get as deep of a roster behind them as you can. The Nuggets have that. So why would they give up three key rotational pieces for Giannis? And you say, because he's Giannis. Okay. Let's play this out. Nuggets step on the court tomorrow, game one of a series with OKC. And their starting five, it's really good. It's Jamal Murray, it's Tim Hardaway Jr., it's Peyton Watson, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, and it's Nikola Jokic. That's scary. You know what's scarier? That it's Bruce Brown and Jonas Valanciunas as the only players on the Nuggets bench to go up against A.J. Mitchell and now Jared McCann, who the Thunder just brought in. Like the Thunder, their move at the deadline is to get deeper. They're not trying to bundle 3 or 4 guys to get a star. They just want to add another young depth piece in Jared McCann, who was playing like a rookie of the year before he got hurt. That's the type of move OKC is making. And everyone says that OKC is the model to follow, and they could become a dynasty, even with all the restrictive financial rules going on in the NBA. So that starting five is crazy good for the Denver Nuggets. But their bench, you're back to where you were a year ago. You have no depth. And in a 7-game series against a young, deep team like OKC, in a 7-game series against a young, deep team in San Antonio, I don't know if that Nuggets team can make it through 7-game series against both of those teams. To say nothing of after this year, the fact that you would inevitably lose Hardaway and Valanciunas. So you'd be even more back to square one. And maybe you say that, and that's why I'm asking the question, because maybe you say that that championship will be worth it. But they won a championship 2 years ago, and it doesn't seem like anyone in Colorado is satisfied with that. Would getting a second make it okay? Now we're good here. They don't have to win another one as long as Nikola Jokic is in a Nuggets uniform. You tell me if that's the way you feel. Just getting a second, that's all he needs. That's all we need. We're good. Because a lot of franchises would kill for one. The Nuggets used to be a franchise that would kill for one title. And they won one title, and now Nuggets fans have been miserable ever since. You worked so hard to create this depth. And you are built to win now in this NBA. The NBA fundamentally changed the minute the Denver Nuggets won the title. Josh Kroenke talked about it. We built ourselves under one CBA and immediately had to go into the other. And now, a couple of years later, they are built to win in this NBA. And you want to give all that up for Giannis. And I love Giannis too. But you legitimately have to ask yourself if that is worth it. And Milwaukee fans would riot if that was the return for Giannis. Just saying. But let's just focus on the Nuggets aspect of this. I don't think you want to give that up for a player who has dealt with his own injury concerns. And to say nothing of what Aaron Gordon means to this team. Yes, you're getting an upgrade as a player, but you're also getting rid of a guy that fits in perfectly with this team. Aaron Gordon, give credit to Tim Connolly all these years later. A perfect fit. Egoless, does exactly the things that the Nuggets need him to do, and he is beloved across the fan base. And beloved in that locker room. So you also have to weigh, would the gut punch of losing Gordon be countered by the adrenaline shot you get by bringing Giannis into your locker room? It's not as easy and cut and dry as long as you don't have to trade Murray and Jokic, we're good. Not in today's NBA. We just learned this lesson with the Denver Nuggets the last 2 years. I'm not making the deal. Would you? 719-247-1313. Coming up next, Giannis not on the move yet, but plenty of guys are. We'll get to them next here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Celebrate the final Cup Classic game of the season on March 10th, presented by KeyBank. Don't miss out on the Gabriel Landeskog bobblehead. It'll be the last one of this collection. Get yours now at coavs.com/Landeskog. Landeskog, speaking of, will not play tonight for the Colorado Avalanche, their last game before the Olympic break, nor will Marty Necas, but Jared Bednar confirmed today that both will represent their respective countries in the Olympics. Do we need to ask the question of you, if you're an Avs fan, how you feel about that? Clearly, this Avalanche team has hit a bit of a rough patch since Landeskog got injured. And he's not able to make it back in time for the Avs to utilize him before the break, but he can play for Sweden. It's an uncomfortable conversation. Seems like only Mark Cuban is brave enough to say what I think many people are thinking. We'll get into that conversation a little bit later. But want to stick with the hoops because things have gotten really nutty in the NBA with these trades going on today in advance of the trade deadline. The biggest one or most significant one, and maybe that's all we have time for in this segment, and I can get into the rest of them a little bit later. It's the benefit of not having just a 1-hour show. Today, the Dallas Mavericks traded Anthony Davis to the Washington Wizards. Now, for Washington, you pair Anthony Davis with Trae Young, and together, that might be enough to get the Wizards out of the Eastern Conference in 2021. So very exciting for Wizards fans to have Trae Young and AD together on the same team. What in the world is Washington doing? Seems this screams we got to get butts and seats. We got to move merchandise. That's what this screams. But maybe there's a 4D chess move coming where they rehabilitate Trae Young and Anthony Davis, and they end up getting a bigger haul down the road. But the half of this trade, the more interesting half of this trade is not Washington. It's Dallas. Because this concludes the Luka Doncic trade, which happened about a year ago to the day. Remember when the Luka trade hijacked Super Bowl week? The conclusion of the trade happens the week of this year's Super Bowl. Essentially, because Mavs got Chris Middleton back, they're going to cut him. He's not going to play for the Dallas Mavericks. So essentially what you have here as the return for Luka Doncic, one of the 3 best players on planet Earth, Max Christie, Marvin Bagley, 3 first-round picks. Ooh, pretty good. 3 first-round picks, right? Well, one of them is held by the Lakers, the team that Luka is helping win now. One is held by Oklahoma City, and not one of those OKC is holding on to the Clippers pick type. It's OKC's actual pick in this upcoming draft. It'll be in the 30s. It will be 30. And Golden State Warriors, which you go, okay, maybe that one, if it's far enough into the future, it's protected. So it would be in the 20s. Or else they don't get it. If Golden State drafts higher than that, the Mavericks don't get that pick. And then 3 second-round picks. That's it. Max Christie, Marvin Bagley, 3 first-rounders, none of which will be above 20 in the draft, and 3 second-round picks. for Luka Doncic. And the Mavericks want you to just see Sham's tweet where he says they get multiple first-round picks in return. That's what they want you to see. They don't want you to delve into where those picks are coming from and what they are ultimately going to be. These are not good. Like, we've had this conversation about the Denver Nuggets and the quality they're getting through the draft with Deron Holmes and Julian Strawther, right, over the last couple of years. Part of the reason they're drafting late in the first round, these are where these picks are going to be for Dallas. When this trade went down, I said it is going to go down as the worst trade in the history of American sport. And now that the final tally has come in, allow me to now say it is the worst trade in the history of American sports. The Mavericks got nothing for Luka Doncic. Nothing. And yes, some of this will be blamed on Nico, and you can pin this on Nico because Anthony Davis has no trade value because he is a broken down version of what he once was. And that's fine. Go ahead, pin it on Nico Harrison. But the fact of the matter is, it will go down as the worst trade in American sports. And Dallas has nothing to show for not. And remember this too. The Mavericks traded for Luka. They got over on the Atlanta Hawks in that trade on draft night. They won. They saw something in Luka that apparently Atlanta didn't. And they won. And they got this guy. And he took them to an NBA Finals and was the face of their franchise post Dirk Nowitzki. And they get nothing in return for him. And the only thing that may keep Dallas Mavericks fans from throwing themselves off of a bridge is the fact that Adam Silver rigged the NBA draft lottery so the Dallas Mavericks could have Cooper Flagg. But that has nothing to do. They didn't get the pick that they won the lottery with from LA. That was their own pick. Had Adam Silver not done what he has routinely done and what David Stern did before him, and that is rig the NBA draft lottery, the Dallas Mavericks would be the worst off organization in all of sports. They would have nothing to look forward to. They have Cooper Flagg. They can rebuild it. The foundation is still strong. They have Cooper Flagg. But Cooper Flagg has nothing to do with the Luka trade. What an unbelievably terrible piece of business. Or pieces of business that the Dallas Mavericks have conducted in the last calendar year. Just putrid stuff. I mean, look, whatever they got back for Luka wasn't going to be enough. And those idiots who were trying to convince themselves that Kyrie and AD, you know the one, he's on ESPN, that is saying, oh, those two together, they'll be special. Okay, how many games of Kyrie and AD did we see? How special have the Dallas Mavericks been, Kendrick? They immediately lost the trade. Everybody knew it. And no matter what they got back from the Lakers, it wasn't going to be enough. and yet they got back less. Three bad first-round picks, 3 second-rounders, Max Christie and Marvin Bagley, if the Mavericks even choose to hang on to Marvin Bagley. Consider the book on the Luka trade closed. Speaking of terrible trades and their repercussions into the future, seems like George Payton helped build a potential Super Bowl champion, but not in Denver. Talk about that coming up. 719-247-1313 is the number if you want to call or text into the show. You're listening to Drive Time Sports. I know the name of my show on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Be back after this. Welcome in hour 2 on this Wednesday. Shouts to those of you watching the show, whether you follow Extra Sports 1300 or 740 KVOR on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. You can watch the show live in all of those places on a daily basis. And if I can ask one more favor for you to like, subscribe, follow, do all of that stuff that you do with social media these days, and most importantly, drop a comment, be a part of the show. It's the least I can do for the favor that you pay me on a day-to-day basis by tuning into this program, whether it's with your ears or with both your eyes and your ears. Of course, you could get in touch with the show in the more traditional ways by calling or texting 719-247-1313. Got this text in from the 719. Mavs fans have lived a lifetime since that trade a year ago. Seems like folks are pretty satisfied with cap space and the chance to get away from the stink of Nico Harrison. I am too. Lottery is rigged, and thank God for it. That, of course, in reaction to the fact that today the Mavericks have closed the book on the Luka trade by trading Anthony Davis to the Washington Wizards for nothing. I mean, they actually got things in return, but they'll probably buy out all the players, and the draft capital they got back is not any good. I don't know what Mavericks fans did in a past life to deserve what Nico Harrison put them through. But I am very glad that, and to the point about the cap space, you do have Cooper Flagg. And that's why I say you can rebuild this franchise. But you had to set fire to it and reduce it to rubble before you could rebuild it. Now, that wasn't Nico Harrison's vision. He was just drunkenly stumbling around and lit something on fire, and it burned the entire Mavericks organization to the ground. But I'm saying you can really only rebuild once you've been reduced to rubble, and that, think about it like Wayne Manor in Dark Knight, right? You can rebuild it. You have Cooper Flagg. You have a desirable location in the NBA ecosystem in Dallas. They can rebuild, but it will have nothing at all to do with what they were able to get in return for the face of their franchise, Luka Doncic. But now I hope Mavericks fans can rest and look forward to brighter days with Cooper Flagg. And Kyrie's supposed to come back at some point, I believe. Speaking of trades that did people no good, seems like George Payton has been at least indirectly responsible for 2 teams competing for a Super Bowl this year. One that actually got there, and unfortunately for him, that's not the team that he wanted to get there. But on Sunday, you're going to see 4 players, 3 of them announced as starters, that were part of the return for Russell Wilson. Charles Cross, the starting left tackle of the Seattle Seahawks, Derek Hall, who is their starting defensive end, Devon Witherspoon, who's one of the better cornerbacks in the game, and then Boye Mafe, who has played in all 17 games this season. Not a starter, but somebody who will be on the field quite a bit on Sunday in Santa Clara. And what I had forgotten is that Drew Lock is still on that roster. Now, he's the backup, and the great irony of the Denver Broncos trade is that none of the actual players that Denver dealt have helped Seattle. get to where they are. It's been the theoretical players that have. But therein lies why you can't be too upset about it, Broncos fans. John Schneider won GM of the year this year, in part because of what he did with the draft capital he received from the Denver Broncos. Right? Laid the foundation that they plopped in Sam Darnold and away they go. But he had to take those draft picks and turn them into something. Right? And it's like when everyone talks about the Herschel Walker trade. And that's what the Russell Wilson trade was immediately compared to, the Herschel Walker trade. The bigger story in that is not the idiocy of the Minnesota Vikings. It's the brilliance of the Dallas Cowboys to take that haul and turn it into what they did. Those draft picks in the hands of a lesser general manager wouldn't have amounted to anything. But Dallas, to their credit, turned it into the nucleus of a dynasty. And that's where I think that's the nuanced difference here that I understand in hindsight, in retrospect, it is a very lopsided trade. And there's no doubt that the Vikings lost that trade. Just like George Payton took a big fat L with the Russell Wilson trade. And it wasn't, and almost the reason why he took the big fat L was not because of what Seattle did with what he gave them. It's what Russell Wilson wasn't when he arrived in Denver. But make no mistake about it, George Payton messed up. He blew it. And Seattle has used it to propel themselves to a Super Bowl a few years later. But you can't get too carried away because, again, John Schneider took these draft picks and were able to get players that have helped Seattle build a defense that has the most takeaways and has allowed the third fewest points in these playoffs. But the idea that Drew Lock may win a ring before anyone on this Broncos roster, that's tough. That's tough because he was drafted to get the Denver Broncos to the Super Bowl. In fact, one of the guys that John Schneider drafted with the capital that George Payton gave him, Tyreek Smith, he now plays for the Chiefs. Doesn't help them at all, but just as an aside. So, yes, the Denver Broncos lost that trade decidedly. But it looks worse because John Schneider has been able to turn those draft picks into a lot of something for this Seattle Seahawks team. And what helps you sleep at night if you're a Denver Bronco fan is the fact that you're in a fine position yourselves. Right? Sean Payton came in at the cost of more draft capital, by the way, and was able to get this thing turned around. And you know how they did this year. But just know that in some small way, if Seattle were to hoist the Lombardi Trophy on Sunday, George Payton and the Denver Broncos would have played a role in Seattle winning a title. The other piece of the Super Bowl that I wanted to talk about, because there are themes that emerge throughout the week and will be discussed after Sunday's game. And no matter who wins, one of the conversations will be about how maybe defensive-minded head coaches can win in the NFL after all. Right? Mike Macdonald or Mike Vrabel will be a Super Bowl champion. And this idea that it's got to be all offense all the time is going to be turned on its head, right? Defensive coaches can win too. Let the revolution begin. Well, not quite. Because what matters, and I'm not saying McDonald and Vrabel don't get a ton of credit, but let's talk about McDaniels and Kubiak, shall we? Let's talk about their role in the success of those two teams. It doesn't outweigh the impact that McDonald and Vrabel have made, but the thing about hiring defensive-minded head coaches is you have to immediately ask the question, who's calling plays for my quarterback? That it is a less direct route, or in that way, a more indirect route to success. If you just get the offensive-minded head coach, then you're already almost there. But if you get a defensive-minded head coach, then you have to nail that hire, because there have been certainly many defensive-minded head coaches who have been disasters. Brian Flores, Vance Joseph. So you got to get that right, which both the Seahawks and the Patriots have absolutely done. But you also have to get the play caller right still. And both of those teams did with Kubiak and with McDaniels. Another couple of guys that, not for nothing, Broncos could have had. Broncos could have had both of them. What year would Josh McDaniels be in his tenure as Broncos head coach had it not gone so terribly? He'd be one of the longer. He'd be the longest tenure coach in the NFL, wouldn't he? Yeah, he probably wasn't going to make it this far with Denver, even if it had gone well. But then Kubiak, and now Kubiak's going to end up in the division, coaching the Las Vegas Raiders with Fernando Mendoza, which it took them a year. They could have been at this point last year, but the Raiders now are in a position that they're actually doing the right thing to try and get back to relevancy in this division, which is don't try to be as good as the other three teams in the division right now. And they're not going to be. They're going to draft Mendoza, who's not going to be he's not going to be Jaden Daniels his first year, but I like Fernando Mendoza. And I think that they're taking a worthwhile risk in Clint Kubiak, and it's the type of risk that a team like the Raiders need to do. Clint Kubiak can't take over, the Buffalo Bills, although the Bills hired Joe Brady, so, good luck with all that. We didn't really get into that, did we? The Bills just saying we're just going to – it's just Sean McDermott. Everything else is fine. Well, I don't know that that's going to work out for them, but for the Raiders, I think Clint Kubiak's a great hire. And maybe he's – and I remember I had Matt Sims on leading up to the AFC Championship game, and he didn't think Clint Kubiak was quite ready to become a head coach. Well, going back to yesterday's conversation about the Sean McVay effect and how teams are now saying to themselves, better to be a year or two early than a year or two too late. So I think, and roll the tape, I don't say this much, Raiders got it right. But I digress. Vrabel and McDonald deserve a ton of credit. and they're both terrific head coaches. Vrabel, you already knew was a terrific head coach. McDonald, you just found out. And maybe they deserve credit for who they picked as their play caller. I don't know that Vrabel had to, stretch his imagination to get to Josh McDaniels. But they deserve some credit. But Drake May and Sam Darnold getting to a Super Bowl with Drake May in his second year and Sam Darnold after all that he's been through shouldn't be long after you talk about McDonald and Vrabel that you're getting to McDaniels and Kubiak. And that's the thing. If you want to hire a defensive-minded head coach, Baltimore, that's fine. I like Jesse Minter. But my question when they hire Jesse Minter is who's he going to get to call plays? And he got the Bears OC who didn't call plays last year under Ben Johnson. So that's a little risky. This is all a little risky from the Baltimore Ravens. But that's what I said. I like Jesse Minter, but he's got to get it right for his offensive coordinator. And I don't know that the guy that Ben Johnson didn't entrust with play calling duties is the right guy. But then again, look at what we're saying about Davis Webb, and Sean Payne didn't entrust him to call plays. So we'll see. I think that's the thing. You hire a defensive-minded head coach, he better get his offensive coordinator right. And Vrabel and McDonald both did, and it's a big reason why Seattle and New England are playing on Sunday. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Super Bowl. Feels like from the conversation yesterday, some of you are still into it. Maybe not, frothing at the mouth in anticipation over Sunday's game, but still kind of intrigued by the matchup. So if you have thoughts, feel free to share at 719-247-1313. Coming up next, more from the wild NBA trade deadline. More deals have gone down just since I took the air, and perhaps the Denver Nuggets are going to be among the teams dealing before tomorrow's 1 p.m. deadline. That's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Somebody take away the keys of the NBA because their trade deadline is drunk. What is Utah doing? What is Washington doing? So many moves being made in the last day or so, and the trade deadline isn't even till tomorrow. One trade in particular that people are asking, why are they doing this? Is the James Harden trade with LA and Cleveland. I actually like the trade for Cleveland. Okay? And I know that your immediate objection, because it's my objection too. I don't think anyone can argue that James Harden is a more talented player than Darius Garland. He absolutely is. And by the way, he's infinitely more available than Darius Garland is, who will not play tonight for the LA Clippers, by the way. Which is interesting. Will they do a video tribute to James Harden the day after trading him? Because those two teams play each other. Anyway, no one can argue that James Harden's a more talented player than Darius Garland. And from a basketball standpoint, Cleveland's backcourt was way too small. And now you had teams, and you saw this in the Eastern Conference playoffs with Halliburton and that group with Indiana. They abused Cleveland's backcourt. In large part because Darius Garland is not large. So, and it's not to say that Darius Garland's not a talented player, but putting him with Donovan Mitchell, it's not a good fit. And Cleveland found that out when they flamed out in the playoffs last year. So from a basketball perspective and from a sheer talent perspective, player A, player B, Cleveland got the better end of the deal. But you don't care about that. You can concede that and still have a major issue with this. The question about this trade is why, for a team that is in desperate need to take the next step in the postseason, that the regular season is now irrelevant and they just need to win in the playoffs, why they are betting on one of the preeminent playoff shrinkers in NBA history. And I'll counter your question with the question. Who do you trust in the Eastern Conference? Or better yet, who do you not have serious reservations about in the Eastern Conference? Like, go ahead, name one team in the East that you're like, oh, I'd stake my reputation on this team. The Celtics with a hypothetical healthy Jason Tatum. That's the only team in the East I trust. In fact, I said at the beginning of the year, don't sleep on Boston. Don't write off Boston, even without Jason Tatum. And you know why I said that? One, because I'm a big fan of Joe Mazzulla and Brad Stevens and Jaylen Brown and Derek White, but also because I don't trust a single one of these other teams in the Eastern Conference, Cleveland included. I don't trust the Knicks. I don't know that I trust Detroit, who hasn't won a playoff. I don't think they've won a playoff game. Maybe it's just series since I was in college. So there are things to like about all these teams. I don't trust any of them. So I think Cleveland's looking at it and saying, well, we know we can't win with Darius Garland. We know that. Okay, so we got to try and find somebody else. We can find a guy who is more talented, who's a better player, more accomplished, physically a better fit with our team. And yes, there are serious questions about James Harden in the playoffs, but who isn't there questions about? So Cleveland is making the bet like, I'm not okay, but you're not okay. We're all not okay. We're the NBA's Eastern Conference. We're the JV squad of the NBA. We don't have to get through Jokic and Wemby and Shea to get to an NBA Finals. We got to get through the Knicks, who thought Tom Thibodeau wasn't a good enough coach for them, and Mike Brown was going to put them over the top. We got to get through the Boston Celtics, who don't have Jason Tatum yet. We got to get through Indiana, who doesn't have Tyrese Halliburton. We got to get through the Detroit Pistons, who have been terrible for the last decade and now just got good. So what they're betting on is it's like that draft day scene with Kevin Costner, right? Where he says, Joe Montana, they said he didn't have a good enough arm. What was John Elway's? Threw too many picks or too out of control? What was it? I don't remember. But basically he said, find Bo Callahan's thing and see if we can live with it. Every one of these Eastern Conference teams have what you would consider a fatal flaw on why you would bet against them. Celtics don't have Tatum. Pacers don't have Halliburton. The Pistons just got here. The New York Knicks are a mess of an organization. And yeah, Cleveland is betting somewhat on James Harden. Is it the worst flaw that any of these Eastern Conference teams have? I don't think it is. And what they're getting in James Harden, I mean, there's no doubt that right now Cleveland's going to be a better team. Watch them go up the standings. And yes, you will have those questions about them during the Eastern Conference playoffs, but they will be playing a Celtics team that may not have Tatum. Or they'll be playing, a young Piston, an inexperienced Pistons team. They're all flawed. So in the meantime, how about you just upgrade the player and figure the rest out later? And that's exactly what Cleveland is doing. And I get it. I'm not going to parade through the streets. I'm still not betting on Cleveland. I'm just saying I understand the psychology behind making a move like this. No one is really that good in the East. So can we overcome it? Because we do have a bona fide playoff performer sharing the backcourt with him. Maybe we can lean more on Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs. So I get it. I mean, I'm not, throwing down my hard-earned money on a Cleveland Cavaliers future, but I understand the psychology behind it. And I say, who in the East do you love? That move wouldn't fly in the West. The West would destroy. First of all, the West would bury this Cleveland team even as currently before they got Harden. They would bury them. But even getting Harden, yeah, they wouldn't last around in the Western Conference playoffs. But that's not the conference they are in. So that was probably the big headlining trade before Anthony Davis got dealt for Magic Beans by the Dallas Mavericks. I got to try and figure out what Utah is up to. Like, Utah would be really good with this roster if they just had a star player. Like, they got, like, Markkanen I really like, and I like Jaren Jackson Jr., who they just picked up from Memphis, and I like Walker Kessler, and I like Keontae George, but I don't see any one of those guys leading a team to a championship, especially in the Western Conference. So it's like Utah is like they're decorating their house, but they have no place to sleep yet. Like, they have all these other things like that you like, but it's like, how are you going to live here? No place to sleep. Well, we'll figure that. We'll get that later. But look at this fantastic coffee table I got. Doesn't this vase tie the entire room together? This armoire, it's beautiful, isn't it? And I guess that's one way. That's one way to go about it. And they'll just try their luck at the lottery in a draft that's pretty stacked and hope that their star is in this draft and they put him with these really nice pieces and suddenly Utah becomes something. And what you would say on the other end is it's not like Utah was doing anything anyway. Might as well try and make a move. And don't forget who's behind that organization now. Okay, his son's the one that's technically in charge, but Danny Ainge is behind that organization. I think Utah is going to get it right, but it just looks very weird right now because they don't have a star that you build around, yet they're building around. They're building around nothing. Got to hit in the lottery. 719-247-1313. Our question of the day that was posed on Facebook earlier. Should the Nuggets make a trade? Okay, last 2 games, I should say, they fell to the top team in each conference. Is that because they're not healthy, or is it something greater? Does this team need to make a move, and if so, what? Take your thoughts on that. I'll give my thoughts, and maybe do a little bit of checking of the rumor mill because there is a rumor about potential teams that Denver may be looking to do business with before 1 o'clock tomorrow. You're listening to 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. It is trade season in both the NBA and NHL. Taking your thoughts at 719-247-1313. There will be a roster freeze in the National Hockey League when the Olympics begin. So if you want to get any business done now and not wait till after the Olympics, you got to do it pretty much today. And the LA Kings have, and it's quite a significant move, as they have acquired Artemi Panarin from the New York Rangers in exchange for their number one prospect and a couple of mid-round picks. Now, when I saw the news from Elliot Friedman, I went, that's not a lot to give up for Artemi Panarin, a player that could potentially tip the scales in the Kings' favor in that Pacific Division. LA is 4 points out of the top spot in the Pacific, held by both Vegas and Edmonton, but they have games in hand, and you're adding who has been one of the better goal scorers in the league the last few years. That's nothing to give up for Artemi Panarin when you're in the middle of a division race like the Kings are, and we can have the bigger conversation of does anything that happens in the Pacific matter at all, considering what the Stars and Avs and now Minnesota with getting Quinn Hughes, what they bring to the table. But that's a division that is winnable. It's right there for the taking, and good for the Kings for trying to grab it. And by the way, they don't give up much in the process. Now, the reason why it has come to light is because Artemi Panarin essentially had the Rangers over a barrel, because Panarin is due to become a free agent. So a team that trades for him would want assurances that Panarin's going to stay long-term. And so when the Rangers went back to Panarin on that, he went, yeah, I just want to go to LA. No, you don't want to go. Nope. Do you want to go to Carolina? Nope. Do you want to go to Toronto? Nope. Washington? LA. And the Rangers, what choice do they have? Trade Artemi Panarin earlier. Yeah, they had that option, didn't they? But they didn't do anything with it, and that's on them. But given the situation they're in, Artemi Panarin could kind of call his shot here, pick where he goes, and the Kings offer their best prospect, but it's a hockey prospect, and in the grand scheme of things, he's probably like a top 50, but definitely not top 25 prospect. Not much return for the New York Rangers. And then Panarin turns around and signs a 2-year extension with the Kings. So that's an interesting one. But more of the deals are going on right now in the NBA. And should the Denver Nuggets join the party? That's our question of the day. Some from Ryan Blackburn. This is Ryan White for Denver Stiffs for a long time. Covers, he's in it. He covers this team on a daily basis. So he's a reliable source of reporting. And he says, watch Hornets, Nuggets, or Pacers Nuggets for potential trade before the deadline. So let me do what you would like to do, but you may be driving in your car. Let's look at the Hornets roster. Probably not going to be Con Knipple. Definitely don't want LaMelo Ball. Any winners there? Nope. Not really. How about the Pacers? Halliburton, Siakam. Do you think that those teams are willing to trade? I don't think, if the Nuggets are going to make a move, I don't think it's going to be one where you go, whoa, oh my gosh, Ben Wallace did it again. That was in the offseason. This is going to be a monetary move in order to Now pay Spencer Jones, who is starting tonight in New York, which means his two-way contract that's it. They got to sign him to a real NBA contract now. They're going to make a move to shed salary. And look, if it's Zeke Najee's salary they're dumping, then maybe that's going to be met with a thunderous round of applause from Nuggets Nation. But it will be financially driven. It will not be a core player, because I think that the Nuggets see it the same way I do. To give up the depth that you work so hard to create on your roster, to give it all up in one foul swoop because you want to go star chasing, is not a good idea. It's not wise. But healthy, this team might be the best in the NBA. And the third reason, they don't really have much to offer anybody. They really don't. But like a year ago, that would be very bad news. In this case, not really. It's not bad news, right? Because who do you want to give up? Jalen Pickett, Zeke Naji, Julian Strother, Hunter Tyson. Like, these are not significant moves. They're not going to get you anything. Here's what teams would be interested in acquiring: Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Peyton Watson. You want to give any of those three guys up right now? I didn't think so. You want to just trade Jonas Valanciunas just so you could say you did something at the deadline? Of course not. Some teams make their moves at the deadline. Some make them in the offseason. The Nuggets made their significant moves in the offseason. And this is going to be trying to shed some salary. And I'm not even advocating, and I know what's coming up with Peyton Watson. I'm not advocating for the Nuggets to trade Peyton Watson. I think you need to see this thing through, and you need to see what happens in the offseason and what the landscape looks like, and understand that you do have the hammer because he is a restricted free agent. Ask Jonathan Kuminga and Josh Giddey how fun it is to be a restricted free agent. How many teams are banging down your door when you're a restricted free agent? Like, I don't think that there is a world where the Nuggets can hang on to Peyton Watson, Cam Johnson, and Aaron Gordon long term. I think there's a way that maybe if they kind of lowball Peyton Watson with his offer for next year, that they can be rid of Cam Johnson's contract. But if they can't, and a suitor comes calling for Peyton Watson and offers a significant amount of money, it's either him or Aaron Gordon. There's no other realistic way for the Nuggets to go about it. So it's either Watson or Cam Johnson or Watson or Gordon, and I know which way you would vote. But that would require a team not swooping in and offering him a ton of money. But I think you need to let it play out. And by the way, when fully healthy, I think this is the best team in the NBA not named Oklahoma City. Give it a shot. That's the Nuggets going all in. Right? We know that Stan Kroenke is hesitant to pay the luxury tax, and that will be a fight that the front office will have to wage because their roster is going to become more expensive next year. But for now, this is the Nuggets version of going all in. Don't deal anybody. If you can dump a Zeke Naji on somebody because they haven't been watching the NBA for the last 5 years, then great. Then what a coup for them. But this group, Gordon, Johnson, Murray, Jokic, Valanciunas, Hardaway, you got to see this thing through, at least this season. Now, what's interesting is that with the Wizards bringing in Trae Young and Anthony Davis and some of the moves that the Hornets have made, there are very few teams with a lot of money this offseason. One team that does is the Los Angeles Lakers. So if we're looking forward and saying who might be out there trying to poach Peyton Watson, might be Luka and the boys. But that's tomorrow's problem. For now, it's will the Nuggets do anything before the deadline? I don't think it's going to be anything that you will be over the moon excited about, but that's okay. Because I think that the Nuggets did all the work they needed to do this offseason. Now, absent a Nuggets move, the only thing that I think as a Nuggets fan you're rooting for tomorrow, please don't let Tim Connolly pull this off and get Giannis in Minnesota. That's it. That's all. If Giannis goes to Miami, and Miami Heat fans are just objectively hilarious. They always think they have a chance at a star. It's cute. It really is. But Miami, if he goes there, who cares? If Giannis goes to any team in the East, who cares? If he goes to the Golden State Warriors, I think who cares? He goes to Minnesota, that could be a problem. That we may have to reestablish this Wolves Nuggets thing. If Minnesota can pull off a trade for Giannis. It doesn't seem like OKC or San Antonio are going to be able to get him. I would think this goes into the offseason. And they'll just shut Giannis down for the year. He will still have played his last game as a Milwaukee Buck, and he'll be the biggest story of the offseason, along with is LeBron retiring. But if you're a Nuggets fan, don't expect any significant moves from Denver and just do whatever it is you do when you want something to happen. Do it for Giannis not ending up in Minnesota. And I think other than that, you could just sit back, relax, and enjoy the fireworks because it's already been a little bit nutty with Utah making huge move for Jaren Jackson Jr., Anthony Davis going to the Washington Wizards to join up with Trae Young. Again, if this were 2021 and I was a Wizards fan, I would be elated. Unfortunately, I'm neither one of the. It's not 2021, and I'm not a Wizards fan. Harden to the Cavs. It's been fun, even if it hasn't directly involved the Denver Nuggets. I'll leave you with this sentiment from my buddy Josiah talking about the Eastern Conference. Said everybody's flawed. So Cavs are just going to make their bet that their flaw of James Harden in the playoffs isn't going to ultimately cost them. Josiah is stumping for his 76ers. Wait until PG comes back. You have the bigger version of James Harden. His name is Joel Embiid. I get it. Josiah, I'm with you. Philly, why not? Why not Philly? And the answer is Embiid, but nobody has a stranglehold on this thing. That'll do it for me. Appreciate your patronage. I'll have Air Force women's basketball against Utah State coming up at 6 on Extra Sports 1300.